right, welcome back, class. We're going to be talking today about lesson 7, perpendicular lines. The learning goals for this lesson are going to be, the point of this lesson is to learn how can I find the equation of the line if I have the slope of the line it is perpendicular to, as well as a point on the graph. So before we get started, we are going to do a little bit of an investigation. So we're going to do, there's these two lines on this graph, right? And we know that they are perpendicular to each other because we can see this little box here that says it's 90 degrees to each other. So whenever we represent 90 degrees on a line, we always represent it like that. Sometimes we represent it as a box. It'll look something like that. Okay, so it says to determine the slope of each line, and then we're going to compare them. So I started off by saying, okay, we're going to start over here, and then I went to here, right? So you're roughly going over 2, 1, 2, 3. So I started here, went up 3 and over 2. So plus 3, plus 2. And we know that it's a plus because it's growing, right? So it's rising. So I'm going to say M is equal to rise over run. So someone asked a really good question earlier on. It's like, okay, like how am I supposed to find points on this line? I don't really have specific numbers. You can just do rise over run when you're given something like this. Okay? So look, okay, let's find 2 points and make a triangle to join them together. So we have rise. So I know that my rise is going up by 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I have my run. It's going over by 2. So my rise over run is 2. That means that my slope is 3 over 2. Going to do something similar with over here. So I'm going to go from this point all the way down to this point right here. Actually, let's go further down. Let's go all the way down to this point over here, right? So I'm going to, again, draw my triangle in so that I can find my rise over run because I don't really have numbers here. And I'm going to notice, first things first, I'm going down. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know this is going to be a negative slope because I'm pointing downwards. So I know it's going to be negative 4. And then I went over 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going over positive 6. So let's just put it in our slope. My slope is equal to rise, which was negative 4, over the run, which is 6. So just the delta y over delta x. We also learned it that way, right? The change in y and the change in x, right? So then I have negative 4 over 6. I can reduce that to negative 2 over 3. And I'm just going to change this to the green markers so that you can see which line is which. So m negative 4 over 6 equals negative 2 over 3. So if we're going to compare these two slopes, we have the blue slope, m of the blue is equal to slope of the blue is equal to 3 over 2. And then the slope of the green is equal to 2, negative 2 over 3, right? So if we're going to compare these, we can say now that what happens is that when you have these two slopes with each other, and we know those lines are perpendicular, for perpendicular lines, the slope is the negative reciprocal, right? Because do you notice here, you have 3 over 2. I'm just going to write this out. If you notice here, you have 3 over 2. If you flip that fraction, you get 2 over 3, and then you add a negative sign in front of it, right? And you get the negative 3 over 2. If I wanted to find, okay, what's the opposite of the green slope, I could flip the fraction, I'll get 3 over 2, and then I have to multiply it by negative 1, so I just change the sign, and it becomes positive 3 over 2. So, which means which means, oops, 2, to find the slope of a perpendicular line, the 2 steps are 1, flip the fraction. So it went from 3 over 2 to 2 over 3. So flip the fraction and then change the sign. So the sign was positive and we changed the sign to negative. And that's it, 2 steps. Whereas if we were given something that was a parallel line, like we remember from lesson 6, if it's a parallel line, we can just keep the same slope. Right? So you just got to add that extra step here in order to get the slope. All right. So we're just going to do a little bit of practice. Try doing these on your own. Maybe look at example 1 with me, and then try doing the rest on your own. So I have my m here equals 4 over 1, and it's asking for determine the perpendicular slope. So I know when I have 4, like a whole number, I can just put it over 1. So I have m equals 4 over 1. So I'm going to do first things first. I'm going to flip the fraction. So I get 1 over 2, and then I'm going to change the sign. So it's a positive sign, so it's going to change to 1 over 4, and that is my slope. Right here I have 5 over 1. So first things I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the fraction. So I'm left with 5 over 1. And then 2, I'm going to change the sign. It becomes negative 5 over 1. I can reduce that to just 5. Negative 5. Okay? So try doing C and D on your own, and then I'll take them up with you. So here, I'm just coming back and doing this. So here I have 6 over 7, and it's a negative. So first things first, I'm going to flip the fraction. So I'm going to do 7 over 6, and it's still a negative. Right? And then I'm just going to change the sign. So my negative becomes a positive, so it becomes 7 over 6. Okay, equals m. And then last but not least, if I have 0, 0 over 0 equals m. Right? So if I flip it, it'll still be 0. Sorry. 0 over 1, my bad. So I have 0 over 1 equals m. Right? So if I flip it, it becomes 1 over 0 equals m. And we know that this is an undefined slope, which makes sense because perpendicular to a horizontal line will be a vertical line. Right? So that makes sense. All right. So I'm going to try to have you do example 2. I'm going to work through example 2a with you, and then maybe you can pause the video and try to do B, C, and we'll take up 3 together as well. Okay? So I would suggest walking through number 1 with me, right? And then you can try doing B and C on your own. So just pause the video and go through B and C on your own. And then come back, unpause the video, and check your answer. Because like I said, you always learn more from, checking where you went wrong so you don't make those same mistakes on a test or a quiz when it actually matters. Okay, so let's do this. So it says, example 2. So it says, determine the equation of the line where with the given criteria. So we'll do A together. So it says the line is perpendicular to y equals 3 over 2x minus 8 and passes through the points negative 6 and 3. So this is really similar to the questions that we did yesterday. First, we're going to find the slope. After we find the slope, we're going to use the information that we're given, and we're going to find the b so that we can make it y equals mx plus b. So the first thing we're going to do is find the slope of the line. Right? So let's find the slope of this line. So I know that the slope of this line, right? So m of 1 is equal to 3 of 3 over 2, right? So my m of my line that I'm trying to figure out is going to be the opposite reciprocal, because m of the perpendicular line, and that's how I draw perpendicular, just like as a right triangle, right? I know that m of the perpendicular line is going to be the negative reciprocal, which just means that I'm going to do the 2 steps that we did before. I'm going to flip the fraction, so it's going to become 3 over 2 is going to flip, so it's going to be 2 over 3, right? And then I'm going to multiply by the negative 1, so it becomes negative 1, 2 over 3. So that is my new slope, right, of my perpendicular line. Then I know that it's going to also pass through points 6 and 3. So now that I have the new slope, find b in y equals, oops, I'm just going to write in here, in y equals mx plus b. You can do this 2 ways. You can either substitute, right, or you can do point slope. I'll do both just for our purposes for this question, but we might start sticking to one or the other moving forward. Okay, so let's find it using y equals mx plus b. So I know that m, right, equals negative 2 over 3. I know that I have an x and a y here. So my x is negative 6 and my y is 3. So I'm just going to put my stuff in. Y equals negative 2 over 3. I'm just going to replace my y with my y value from there. 3. X. And my x value I know is going to be 3 as well. Negative 6. Right? Plus b. I don't know what b is, so that's the one that I'm going to have to figure out. So I'm just going to do the math. So 2 times 3 times negative 6, so this becomes negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is going to be positive 4 plus b. 3, right? I'm going to carry the 4 over, so it's going to be 3 minus 4 equals b. 3 minus 4 is negative 1 equals b, right? And then I'm going to sub b into y equals mx plus b. So then it becomes y equals negative 2 over 3x plus negative 1, which is just the same thing as saying negative 1. Okay. Let's try it doing point slope form. I'm going to do myself a solid and give myself a little bit more space to do this than I did over there. So I'm going to write a big or here, because you can do either or. You don't have to do both. You can do either or. I'm just showing you the 2 different ways that you could write this. They mean the same thing. So I'm going to do y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Right, so y minus 3 equals negative 2 over 3 x minus negative 6. So y minus 3 equals negative 2 over 3x plus 2 over 3 times 6. I'm just going to cross that out. So I have 2. And I'm just going to solve. That becomes a plus 4, right? Then I'm going to do y. I want to get rid of this. Oops, that doesn't become a plus 4 because you're doing negative 2 over 3. So this becomes a minus 4, right? And I'm going to add a 3 over here to get rid of it. Negative 2 over 3x minus 4 plus 3 y equals negative 2 over 3x minus 1. You get the same answer. So you can do it either way. It does not matter. But you are going to get the same thing. You're going to get negative 2 over 3x minus 1. Okay? Alrighty. So moving forward, you're going to try doing b on your own, and then we'll take it up together. So just pause this video, try doing b on your own, and then we can take it up together. Alright, so welcome back. So again, we're going to try to find the equation of the line that is perpendicular to line 3x plus 4y plus 12 equals 0. We got lucky here. They actually gave us the slope of the line in that standard form. So we didn't have to do a lot of work. Here, we got to do a little extra step and we got to put it into standard form. So, first things first, we're going to find the slope. Original line. So let's find it. 3x, just going to change my pen. 3x plus 4y plus 12 equals 0. So let's move the 3x and the 12 to either side by subtracting 3x here, subtracting 12 here. Whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other. These two will cancel each other out, so I'll be left with 4y. These two will also cancel each other out, so I'll be left with just 4y. Negative 3x minus 12, right? Got to divide both sides by 4 because you want to get that y on its own. So I'm left with y equals negative 3x over 4 minus 12 over 4. Y equals negative 3 over 4x minus 3. So that's the equation of my original line, which means that my slope here is going to be negative 3 over 4. Right? So that's my slope of line 1. So my slope of the perpendicular line is just going to be the negative reciprocal of, so I'm going to flip it over, so it's going to become 4 over 3, and I'm going to change the sign, so it's going to become positive 4 over 3. Okay? So now that's my step 2, so I'm just going to put that in. Find slope of perpendicular line. And after I find the slope of the perpendicular line, find b. So either I can plug it back into y equals mx plus b, or I can just look here and say, okay, 0, 4, that means that this is the b-intercept. Or the y-intercept. Right? So I can just say y equals mx plus b. Right? So I can say y equals negative 3 over 4. Oh, sorry, not negative 3 over 4. We said our slope was 4 over 3, x plus 4. And that'll be my answer. Okay. And as always, we go from easy to a little harder to the hardest, right? Or a second hardest. So this one says, this has a little bit more information. It says perpendicular to this line, right? And has the same x-intercept as this line. So we're going to get the slope from here, right? And we're going to get our x and y from here, right? So we're getting our information to two different lines now, okay? So take a minute, try to figure out how you might do this, and then come back and watch this. So first things first, you want to find the slope of line 1. And it's in standard form, so it's pretty useless to us now. So let's change it to slope-intercept form. So I'm going to leave the 2x there. Maybe I'll move the negative 3y to the other side. So it's going to become positive 3y plus 4. I have been really bad at showing you how I'm moving things over. Because we're like deeper on into our lessons, I don't always ask you to show me this step. But just to be sure, I want to make sure you know how to do it. Okay, So you're left with 2x plus 4 equals 3y. You got to get rid of the 3 on both sides, obviously. So I'm left with 2 over 3x plus 4 over 3 equals y. That's the equation of the line. So then it means that my slope is just whatever's in front of the x. So it's 2 over 3, right? So that's the slope of line 1. Next, we want to find the slope of the perpendicular line. We know it's the opposite. It's a negative reciprocal. So we're going to flip the fraction. So it's going to become 3 over 2. So m perpendicular is going to become 3 over 2. And it's going to be a negative because we take the fraction, we flip it, and we change the sign. After we found the slope, right, it says that it has the same x-intercept. So let's find that x-intercept. How do we find the x-intercept? Y is equal to 0, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say it has the same intercept as a 6y line. So make sure you find the x-intercept of that line and not the 2x line. I'm just going to sub in the 0 for my y here. Right, 12 times 0 is just 12, it's just 0. Minus 24 is minus 24 equals 0. So I'm going to move the 24 over to the other side by adding it. So it's going to be positive 24 divided by 6. Sorry, it's getting a little messy here. So then I'm left with x is equal to 4. And so the coordinates are 4 and 0 because our y was 0. Right? So those are our coordinates. So now let's put this all together. So you can just use point slope method, or you could use y-intercept method. It's up to you. But plug in x, y, and m to find b. And that's how I'm going to do it for this one, but you can use the other way. So y equals mx plus b. Y equals, we know our m is going to be negative 3 over 2 times 4. And I know my y is just 0. Sorry, forgot to add that in. I'm just taking 4 and 0 from here. Plus b. Negative 3 times 2 is going to be negative 6 plus b. 0. Plus 6, because if you want to get rid of the negative 6, you got to add 6. Plus b. I'm going to start drawing my b's like this because sometimes my b's look like 6's. Right? And then I'm left with 6 equals b. So if I plug that back into y(mx) plus b, right, I'm just going to do y equals negative 3 over 2 x plus 6, and that is the equation of my line. It doesn't say to leave it in standard form, so we'll just leave it in vertex form or in point slope form. So we have this last one here. It says the two lines on the grid are perpendicular to each other, right? So we know that these are perpendicular to each other. It says to determine the value of k, right? So there's going to be a few things that we need to do. The first thing we're going to need to do is find out what the slope is for the original line that we have both points for, because we don't really have the slope of the orange line. I notice here I have an x and a y, and then over here I have an x1, y1, and we'll say this is x2, y2. Right, so let's find the slope of that blue line. Slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is equal to 9 minus negative 3 over 3 minus negative 6, right? So I'm left with 9 plus 3 over 3 plus 6. So I know I have 12 over 9. And I know I can reduce that to 4 over 3. So if I know the slope to that blue line, and I know that the orange one is perpendicular, what I can say about the slope of the orange one is you flipped the fraction, so you made it 3 over 4. And since it was a positive, you changed the sign to negative. Right? So now that I know what slope is, it's really easy. We've already done this. We literally just did this. So we're going to do rise, right, over. So k, so I'm just going to put in x1, y1, x2, y2, right? And we're just going to substitute stuff in now. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, okay, slope is equal to rise over 1, which is the same thing as saying y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? So let's put in our numbers. So I know y2 is k minus 2 over 8 and negative 4 is equal to, and our slope is negative 3 over 4. Right? So then we're just going to solve, right? We're going to do 3. We're going to solve for k. K minus 2, 8. The negative and the negative become a positive, so this becomes 8 plus 4. Right? So then I'm left with negative 3 over 4 equals k minus 2 over 12. So to get rid of the 12, we're going to multiply the 12 on both sides. So then I have 12 and 4. They cancel each other out, so this becomes 3. So then I'm left with negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9, equals k minus 12, right? Minus 2. I want to get rid of that 2, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 9 plus 2. And this has to be a negative because it's a negative and a negative. So negative 9 plus 2 gives me negative 7 equals k. And if we go back and look at our graph, we can see it's in the negatives. Looks like it's about negative 9 anyway, so that makes sense. Okay? And that is that. That is how you find the value of k. All right. See you tomorrow. If you have any questions, just ask as we go along. It's probably better to watch this before class. But if you have questions and you're watching this after class, feel free to either send me an email or to ask in class tomorrow as we go over this during review.